everyone, I'm back with a new RMP scenario. This one is brief, yet challenging. Let me quickly read out the scenario and the option choices, and then we will discuss. So, scenario says that how can a project constraint result in an opportunity? Looks simple, but the option choices are not that simple. Option A says by providing lessons learned that can ensure the successful completion of the project. B, by removing or relaxing a factor that limits the execution of the project. C, by leading to the identification of a circumstance that required change. And D, by informing the assessment of the priority of individual projects. I told you, the question looks simple, but the option choices are very tricky. So before we talk about the option choices, we need to know what is constraint by definition, what is opportunity by definition. See, constraint, I have talked about it multiple times in my previous videos as well. Constraint by definition is any event, any situation, or any type of factor which limits the planning or the execution of project. So it's a limitation. Constraint, in easier word, is a limitation. It could be any limitation. It could be a resource limitation. It could be a schedule limitation. Like when we say tight schedule or tight timeline, it's a project constraint. When we say limited budget, it's a project constraint. When we say a certain number of resources are available, it's a project constraint. When we say this project is like heavily impacted by regulatory and compliance, it's a project constraint. So anything which blocks you or which may impede your work could be a project constraint, and it's not really limited to agile or predictive. Like any type of projects may have multiple types of constraint, and different industries and their projects may have different type of constraints. So many projects has HSE constraints, many projects has GRC constraints, many projects has production constraints. So you may come across different type of constraints. What's an opportunity? So we have talked about that multiple times. Opportunity is like a positive risk, a risk which impacts you in a good way in the project or in the organization. So it's a risk with positive or healthy impact on the project, right? So what is going to be a situation where the constraint would become an opportunity? We need to answer this question. Option A, by providing lessons learned that can ensure the successful completion of. By the way, when I posted this question on the regular Wednesday RMP post, we received like a mixed response among ABC. So I think people just guessed this question. They didn't really go with like for a logical understanding. A actually is not the answer to this question. I'm going to tell you why. Lessons learned means what you have learned already in the project, right? In a sense, if I say it in the risk management language, it's going to be a fact. Known. It's not going to be a known unknown or unknown unknown, which probably would be leading to opportunity. So lessons learned is something which has already been happened, something done and dusted, right? And you know that as a lesson, could be positive, could be negative. So it's a fact, right? So it has nothing to do with opportunity. Lesson learned would not lead to opportunity, at least for that project. Maybe yes, for the new projects or the upcoming projects, but not for that respective project. So A is out. See how tricky it is. But some of you would say that lessons learned could be an opportunity, that the lessons that you have learned could lead to some of the opportunities. Yes, but that is not a project constraint, right? A project constraint is usually related to plan, something which is about to come, right? Not something which has been done. So let's talk about B. By removing or relaxing a factor that limits the execution of the project. Now, this sounds like an idea. Why? So if you remove or relax, so relax means like lowering down the impact or mitigating the impact, negative impact of something. Remove means altogether removing or avoiding that thing. That limits the execution of the project, which exactly what the constraint is, as I've already said. So a constraint by definition is any type of limitation. So if you relax or remove a factor that limits the execution of the project, this is exactly where the opportunity is going to be generated because of that constraint. Let me give you an example. You are working on a project where from the organization, when you started on that project or when you were planning on that project, you got that directive from your sponsor or senior management that you are not going to get more than 2 resources in the project team on this project, which imposes a constraint, right? Maybe you had a need of 3 resources or 4 resources, or you requested for these many resources, but you got 2. So this would automatically become a constraint. Of course, this is a made-up scenario just to help you understand. Later on, because of ABC XYZ reasons, when you started on the project, or maybe the company got some additional funding and they now are willing to relax or remove this constraint. So what would be the relaxation? Maybe now they are willing to provide you 2.5 or 3 resources. Okay? So this is still not as many resources as you have requested for, which is 4. Or in case of removing, they are going to provide you 4 resources, as many resources as you have requested for to successfully execute the project. This will become an opportunity for you. Right? So B is very much making sense as the answer of the question, but let's check option C and D as well. C, by leading to the identification of a circumstance that requires change. Maybe some of you would be very much inclined to this answer by saying that change may lead to an opportunity. First of all, change is not always a constraint. And secondly, change is not necessarily going to result in an opportunity. May or may not be the case, depending on more information. For instance, change could be there in the project for so many reasons. Maybe for a new regulation, maybe because of non-performance, maybe because of new requirements by the customer, maybe because of underestimated requirements, or maybe because of this and that reasons. So always the change is not going to result in an opportunity, right? If the change is there because of underestimation of the requirements or non-performance or because of ineffective resources or that, then this is not an opportunity. Of course, this is going to be a liability for the project. So we need more information for C, right? So C is not the best answer. So C is out. Let's check D. By informing the assessment of the priority of the individual project. This one is clearly an odd one out. But let me explain. By informing the assessment of the priority of the individual project risk. First of all, we need to understand what this statement is saying. This statement is saying a very simple thing. The assessment of project risk based on priority, which means the assessment of project risk based on probability and impact, because this is how we calculate the priority. So this is not how you create opportunity always, because the assessment of project risk may lead to multiple type of multiple results, multiple scores, multiple priorities, and not always it's an opportunity. And by the way, when we say assessment of project risk, so this talks about both categories of project risk, threats and opportunity. But so D clearly is not an answer to this question because the project risk, maybe threats, maybe opportunity. So that's that reason, as well as information or communication or documentation of project risk assessment is not always going to lead to an opportunity. It's never going to lead to an opportunity. And this is not a constraint as well. This is like just a data point calculation in project risk management. So D is like clearly not an answer. It may look like a very tempting answer, but it's not. It's an out one out. So B is the right answer to this question. I hope you like this explanation. If you have any queries or any follow-up questions, feel free to drop that in the comment area. Feel free to reach out to me via WhatsApp or LinkedIn or Facebook or whichever channel you prefer. And I will definitely connect with you and clarify your queries. I will be back very soon with a new RMP scenario. Till then, take care. Goodbye.